John McMullen and Jody McDonald. Mac and Mac here on Birds 365 after a come-from-behind 21-17 Eagles win over the Kansas City Chiefs on the road in Arrowhead last night. Johnny Mac was in the house. He's still in Kansas City, returning today. I ask you this after every road game and try and judge it by TV. You get a much better look at it live in the stadium. It sounded like a very pro-Kansas City crowd. We've seen enough Eagle games where the fans go in and, quote-unquote, take over the stadium, and they're as good a traveling fan base as there is in this town. Didn't sound like – they got good video shots of the group that were there, but it, just judging by volume, didn't sound like a heavy Philadelphia crowd. The Chiefs kept their home field advantage last night, Johnny Mac?
Yeah, that's not a place you can take over unless they're going to allow you to. But, there were a smattering of Eagles fans, and they were loud for certain situations and obviously at the end of the game. And there always is. But, yeah, that's, I always say you can only take over an opposing stadium if the opposing fans allow you to.
Mm-hmm.
And Kansas City at this stage is certainly not going to be one of those. But they were upset at their own team at times, especially in the second half. They're a little bit spoiled. I always say Eagles fans are a little bit spoiled now, and they are. Chiefs fans are probably even more spoiled. And they haven't been doing well offensively for over a month, and they're getting frustrated with it, which is kind of it's always, I get it, but it's, I'm like, come on, give them a little rope.
And I don't know about you, but in watching last night's game, I thought it was funny. The first thing I said today, tale of two halves. Eagles not good in the first half, rally and get the win much better in the second half. You said it's the basically same thing that happened last year in the Super Bowl, only in reverse. The Eagles were on the right side of it last night, on the wrong side of it the year before. And I'll say the same exact thing about the quarterback matchup. No doubt in my mind, Patrick Mahomes was a better quarterback on the field last night. The same way Jalen Hurts was the better quarterback in the Super Bowl last year, but Mahomes won the game. Last night, I thought Mahomes was the better quarterback on the field, but Jalen Hurts won the game, and that's the most important thing. How many balls did Kansas City receivers drop on Mahomes last night?
That is a bad group, Jody.
Holy mackerel.
That is a bad group. And even Kelsey, couple he had a drop at the end of the game. And he had the fumble as well, as we mentioned. So typically you don't see that from him. But, yeah, I mean, Justin Watson is getting 11 targets. I'm looking – hey, that tells you where they are. And you see that Rashee Rice has got some skill, and maybe he can develop. He's the one guy. You see, all right, there might be something there. But he's very raw at this stage, and you got to wait. And then the Hardmans and Tonys and Sky Moores, you see what they're trying to do. They have athleticism. They're trying to create, not what they had with Tyreek Hill, but some of the same ability to stretch the field, both vertically and horizontally. But they're just not good receivers. I mean, that's the underrated part of Tyreek Hill. He could do all that stuff with the motion. But, he can target the football and run routes, and he's a great receiver. Those guys aren't great receivers. Tony was pretty good on punt returns again. I will say that. The Eagles seem to struggle with him on punt returns.
Except the biggest one where Joe made a great play.
Yeah, that was a great
down
play,
late in the game.
And I've been talking about Josh and Calais Ringo for weeks, turning around that special teams unit. And you saw it up close with Josh Jobe there. That was great at a big moment. So yeah, that group isn't good, and we'll see. Short week, Buffalo's coming in now. You want to turn Josh Allen over a couple times because he's going to allow you to at least. But Stephon Diggs, and we'll see where they are mentally. There will be tougher tests ahead at the wide receiver position, no doubt about that.
Last night in the game, tell me if you got a feel on this. Mahomes is different than anybody else in the league. He just has abilities and can do things and does things differently than anybody else. Just making plays off schedule and stepping up and on the fly and left and right. Do you think he looks to do that quicker than maybe he needs to? I want to give the Eagles defensive line a lot of credit. You know, you and I go back and forth all the time on sacks versus pressure. And you give more credence to pressures than I do. I know what it can lead to, but sometimes guys step up out of pressure and throw a 45-yard touchdown pass, and it's checked off as, it was a pressure. Well, who the hell cares? Last night, the pressure that the Eagles defensive got did have Mahomes moving. And I just got the feeling that he likes to move, that he wants to move, that he thinks that helps him and maybe helps with his wide receivers. Didn't help him much last night because they kept dropping the ball. Do you think Mahomes is quicker to get out of the pocket than any other quarterback in the National Football League?
I would have to watch every game. He's certainly one of them. But
impression is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, he enjoys extending play. Like one of the things for all the accolades, and again, I said it deservedly so, that Andy Reid gets. And by the way, this counts for Nick Sirianni as well, and Shane Steichen and Brian Johnson. A lot of their success is the unscripted play of the quarterback, the stuff that is just whatever you want to frame it as, schoolyard ball, whatever, just, or you go here and I'm going to make a play. And he does that better than anybody. And Jalen's, top 5 as well.
Yep.
And that kind of gets lost in the sauce when everybody's given all their flowers to play callers or coordinators or head coaches. And that's why I always say, when anybody asks me those questions, you were talking about, what are the 3 categories?
Talent, toughness, clutchness.
Talent, toughness, clutchness. The Eagles are all of the above, but talent is number 1, and talent will always be number 1. And the one thing I said,
but on a given night, maybe one of the other two,
because talent's got you in a position to use those other 2 things. But I always say the most honest thing Nick Sirianni has ever told me, and everybody else, is show me a good coach and I'll show you a bunch of good players. And we're seeing it with Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick's not a bad coach. He didn't wake up one day and say, oh, I forgot everything I know about football. Not a bad coach. Andy Reid, his last year here, when he won 4 games, wasn't a bad coach. Even the best coaches can't win without talent. That's why I always pick talent, number 1.
Great on a curve, because you're right. The talent should win the day every single day. But on a given night, sometimes some other things pop up and at least make it close, if not outdo talent. But when you're looking at the big picture, 17 games, an entire season, talent is going to drive the bus every single year in and year out. Let me ask you about a Brian Johnson / Nick Sirianni play call last night. And you were in the press box, so you might not have heard this. And Aikman second guessed it. And I'm watching the TV and I'm going, yeah, I'm 100% with you, Troy. I was thinking the same exact thing. Eagles in the second half in Kansas City territory got a 9-yard gain on first down. So they got 2nd and 1. And they go to the tush push and they push him forward, and Jalen gets 3 yards. He gets the first down easily and tacks on another couple on top of it. And Aikman specifically said, I'd hold that one back for 3rd and 1. If you know it's a lock, if you know it can't be stopped, you know how good you are at running it, and nobody in the league has proven they can come close to stopping it, why not take a chance on 2nd down? Why not try and make a big play there, because you got it in your arsenal? Now, you got to be able to protect the quarterback, and last night Kansas City did some pretty good pressurizing and got aggressive, and I wouldn't be surprised if Spags had brought a blitz on that given play if it had been a different call other than the tush push. But I still agree with Aikman. That's a take a shot play. It's almost like Guy jumps off sides. Who did? Was it Mahomes or was it? Yeah, I think Sweat jumped offside last night. Mahomes took a shot down the field. When you get a free play, you take a big play. You go for a big play. I thought the Eagles should have taken a shot there. Now, it ended up not hurting them because they get the first down. They go on from there. But why not take the shot on a 2nd and 1 when you got a tush push in your back pocket for 3rd and 1?
Yeah, I mean I get it from Troy's perspective. I'm trying to think of the exact play. What was the situation again? I know they didn't convert a 3rd down until the 3rd quarter.
Well, see, that wouldn't have been 3rd down. That was 2nd
No,
down. They
that's
got 9 yards on 1st. So, you're saying they feared they couldn't complete a 3rd down on 3rd? I would have taken my chances there.
They were very weak, which is very uncharacteristic on 3rd down. They came in number 1, and they didn't convert a 3rd down until the 3rd quarter, which was on a tush push. I'm trying to think of. It's always from a quarterback's perspective. Yeah, 2nd and 1's always let's take a shot. But that's why I was trying to look at the play after and where they were and what they did. And I forget. I'll try to look it up in the break, but. I don't think it was a great offensive game, to say the least. I always criticize the bubble screen. The Eagles seemed to go all bubble screen at one point, which was driving me personally insane because I don't think they do it well. And then they'll argue well, yeah, but we set up the inside screen to Swift. They got that going a little bit. They were obviously, because of the first half, they were struggling, which is rare for them with the pass rush of Kansas City. They couldn't block Chris Jones in the first half. They just couldn't. And that's a great player. I just talked about talent. That's a great player. And sometimes you got to tip your hat to the other team as well. And they couldn't block him. They couldn't convert a 3rd down. And I think that affected their thought process in the second half a little bit, probably too much. And they were probably too conservative, and they weren't converting 3rd downs. They didn't have a lot of offensive plays. They didn't really click until, as I said, Andy Reid made the bad decision. Then they seemed to get a little bit of jolt of confidence, and all of a sudden you're throwing a deep shot to Devontae, and bang. You got the lead. But I don't think it was an impressive offensive performance. But I get it from Troy. Troy's always going to say 2nd and 1, take a shot. That's a quarterback. Take a shot. 2nd and 1, take a shot.
But I don't care if he was a defensive lineman. I agree. I'm not going to discount Aikman's opinion just because he's a former quarterback.
I'm not discounting it. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. I'm not discounting it. I'm just saying, yeah, but you can't do it 100% of the time. And that's when I want to look at what happened in the situation, but I don't remember it all. I got 3 hours of sleep maybe, so I'm not as sharp. I don't remember the exact situation, but in general, yeah, 2nd and 1 is the time to take a shot in general. Where are you on the field? Obviously, you want to be generally near midfield or a little bit plus. When you're doing it, a lot of things factor into it.
I think they were in plus territory, as a matter of fact, just past midfield. One guy who did, and the Eagles, certainly the second half offense, one big play, to be truthful with you, was the Devontae Smith pass. But other than that, the key to the offense last night was DeAndre Swift. He had a pretty damn good game, Johnny Mac. I know from time to time you say the Eagles running back room is good. It's not great. DeAndre Swift was pretty damn good last night. He was, for me, their best offensive player. If you look the entire game across the entire 4 quarters, the most consistent and the best offensive player was DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, this is always going to be a chicken and egg thing with people because Jalen was back in the run game. And again, it's not, if people look at the box score and they say, well, he only had 29 yards, but now he was running the football and he was back pulling it, and that opens things. The most impressive part, I would say, about DeAndre Swift's game was the receiving aspect. They got him involved with those inside screens, and they would almost throw the bubble screen, and it would fail, or they get 2 yards, and then they would throw the inside screen, and DeAndre Swift would have a little bit of room, and they kind of set it up that way. But getting him involved in that aspect was a big thing. The running, they got him loose on that jet sweep. By the way, Nick used more motion that he usually uses. They were using jet, orbit, traditional motion way more than they typically do. And he got loose on the one jet sweep, I think, for 35 yards, which is a really good run. And that was perfectly executed. The timing, remember, that's a road game. And he was running full speed when he took that jet sweep, and he got loose, and that was a really, that shows off his strengths as an athlete. But yeah, when Jalen's involved, it's just their running game's better. So, and they got the quarterback draw for a touchdown. We haven't seen that in a while.
Untouched.
Yeah. So, yeah, when he's involved, it becomes easier for the backs.
It makes everybody's life a little bit easier when Hurts is carrying. And they had one play last night. I was kind of surprised, at least the way they described it on the air. It looked like it was probably going to be a quarterback draw. It was a play out of gun, and Jalen took a step forward and was immediately dropped, and looked like a sack to me. And they said they'll judge that one as a run because it looked like. Usually with the official scores, anytime a quarterback gets dropped in the backfield, it's a sack. It's not considered a run. That's why betting quarterbacks' rushing yards are usually pretty good, because when they get sacked, you don't lose any yards because it's considered a sack, not a running play. Jalen did take a loss on a run last night. So I think that cut back his numbers. And yes, again, a couple of tush pushes, which is going to cut into the average yard per carry. But you're right. Last night, I'd say about 3 times he specifically took off either, and one, of course, was a touchdown, and at least twice others where he got positive yardage, picked up a first down, got to the 6, sticks. Yeah, he went into the slide, but he had already made a significant enough gain that I didn't even worry about him going into the slide. You think that Spagnuolo and his defense gave Jalen the proper respect, and that opened things up for Swift in the second half?
Yeah, I do. And really running the football, he was better in the first half than the second half. I think it was the inside screen a little bit, and he only had 3 of them, but they were pretty effective in the passing game. But early they were running the football pretty well with DeAndre, and again he had, what do you have, 76 yards, and 35 of them, as I said, are on the one jet sweep. So but that counts, and they're a little bit better, and they've been better than they have been. And even Boston Scott got involved a little bit. And yeah, I think they're just better when Jalen's involved in the running game. I know it. And, +1. And that's all those types of quarterbacks. When they get involved, it makes it easier. Whether it's Khalil Herbert when he's healthy in Chicago, when Justin Fields is out there, and Lamar Jackson, Jody McDonald can get rushing yards, I'm convinced, with Lamar Jackson out there, because it doesn't matter who they wrote. They're like the Mike Shanahan Broncos, where they just wrote, all right, let's rotate this guy in, and he'd get 1,000 yards if he gets enough carries. And yeah, I mean, those guys just help the running game.
And, oh, by the way, and I cashed on this again last night, Mahomes is one of the more underrated rushing quarterbacks in the National Football League, because he's Patrick Mahomes, and people go, he throws the ball all over the place, throws from different angles, he throws from sidearm or whatever else. And the Eagles got pressure last night, Johnny Mac. Again, you and I talk pressures. I got to give the Eagles defensive line credit. They didn't get home. They didn't get sacks. But they got one
right away, too.
Right off the bat. It was done. Was it the first or second play of the game? I don't remember where.
I think it was first or second.
Short completion on first down. And
second. And they were trying to chip him and just completely missed. And, It was.
Yeah, the tackle's got to know the tight end's chipping. The tight end's not completely taking him on the play. He isn't going mano a mano with Hassan Reddick on a pass blocking assignment. No, he's just trying to lend you a helping hand. The tight end chips, and then the tackle doesn't even bother. He's late and engaging with one of the best pass rushers in the National Football League. Not good.
By the way, Hassan was hilarious after the game talking about Jawan Taylor, where he lines up. He's basically a fullback where he's lining up. I don't know. He lines up so far off the line of scrimmage. I don't know. The NFL's got to fix that, but he was laughing about it. It's funny after you win the game, but obviously if you lose it, you're like, what's going on there?
Right. But I think you and I talked about this leading up to the game. It's like the perfect timing of Lane Johnson. I don't know that it's always perfect. Sometimes I think he gets a millisecond head start in pulling before the ball is snapped, but they never call it on him. And the same thing, if you know Taylor's going to be lining up what is usually further back than every other tackle in the game, well, that's what the NFL.
Yeah, that's part of it. I'm not. I only bring it up because Hassan was complaining about it in the locker room.
Do you think other defensive ends complain about Lane Johnson with his?
Sure.
Yeah,
sure. But when you see it up close, it's kind of funny. But yeah, I mean that's part of it. I don't complain about officials in general because there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing you can do about it.
And last night, I don't think the officials played a big part in that game. I don't think there was a major call that I said, what the hell are they throwing a flag on that for? That's just not right. You haven't been called all game, or any egregious miscall. I actually thought the referees did a pretty good job. If you're not noticing them, and I didn't notice them much last night, means to me they did a good job over the course of the game.
Yeah, there's this Twitter account and X account, excuse me. I want to give credit to because they do all the work. At NFL Rep Stats, and they actually break down each game each week with the crews, and they send me the information every week. And I did think it was interesting. I'm trying to pull it up as we're talking. Sean Smith, who was the referee, is very typically the home team loses when he's the official. So maybe the Eagles got a break. Yeah. Maybe the Eagles got a break. I'm trying to pick it up.
Yeah, I know
his crew is number one calling unnecessary roughness and number two for defensive pass interference penalties. They call 51% of the penalties, which is essentially right down the middle on the home team. Home teams, though, are an NFL worst 1-9 with Smith in 2023. So 1-8. So it's now 1-9. 1-9, the home team with Sean Smith. So if you want to bet some money.
last night was a chance to take advantage of that. Correct me if I'm wrong. You got those stats in front of you. I think that crew is one of the least holding flag crews in the National Football League. They're coming into the game. If you're telling me they throw a lot of pass interference, unnecessary roughness penalties, I wouldn't be surprised. But I don't think they call a lot of holding. And there were plays last night where I absolutely believe the Eagles' defensive line was held, but I believe there were plays when the Eagles' offensive line was holding that they let go. There was the one on Zacchaeus on the end around. I think it was a Swift touchdown, where there's no questions asked. He was holding on the play, and the player certainly complained about it, and they showed video, at least on the replay.
Oh yeah, the odds. Yeah, that's the one I saw. Yeah, that was holding.
So it goes both ways, and I believe this is a crew that's gonna give you a little latitude. They're gonna let you get away with it a little bit.
He did mention holding. The Chiefs are the top three penalized team for offensive holding coming in, while the Eagles were the least penalized for offensive holding. Smith's crew, all these calls below average. Category. In that category.
That's what I thought, and that's what I saw last night. They let them play, and there wasn't egregious calls for me missed on either side. I don't think refereeing played a huge amount in that game. But
where's our buddy Jeff Kerr? I just realized, where the heck's Jeff? I got to text Jeff.
Yeah, I texted him and he hasn't responded to me just yet, so I don't know where Kerr is this morning. Here's one of the narratives that will pop up, Chris. Not here on Birds 365, not in Philadelphia, but nationally, because you've heard it, I've heard it. Last night's game, and I thought Mahomes played very well and making plays up as the Eagles were pressuring him and having balls dropped all over the place by wide receivers and the best tight end in the NFL and maybe one of the best tight ends ever, just blatantly dropped the ball that hit him in the hands. So I thought Mahomes got a bit of a raw deal. But there'll be some who say Mahomes had a significantly better game than Hurts because Jalen Hurts once again had no touchdown passes. On a game where he runs it in twice, and there are only 3 touchdowns scored by the Philadelphia Eagles. There are only 5 touchdowns scored in the game, and he's the only guy who gets 2 touchdowns. Who the hell cares whether he throws it in or runs it in if the team gets a touchdown and he's a big part of it? And running it in, to me, would be a big part of it. Does it matter, John, whether he throws it or runs it? I hate the narrative that, oh, Jalen didn't throw any touchdown passes. So what if he runs 2 in? It doesn't matter that he doesn't throw any.
Yeah, I know it doesn't matter to the Eagles. I know that.
It shouldn't matter to anybody, is my point.
Well, when you're talking about individual awards, yeah, it matters when people are talking about that. It matters to fantasy football people and all that kind of stuff.
No. You get more points in fantasy football for running it in and tossing it in. Yeah, it matters to fantasy players. Yeah. Fantasy players love it. You get more points for running it in.
I admit I'm not an expert on fantasy football, but yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, what is the difference between whatever the 40-yard throw to Devontae Smith down to the 1-yard line, and then he pushes it in? I mean, what the heck is the difference whether Devontae gets it or Jalen gets it? Now, from a player's perspective, sometimes that stuff matters to contract, goals, because you might have a bonus coming. So all that stuff kind of factors in. But yeah, I can tell you 100% the Eagles don't care. They just want to score however they score. And they don't give a flying what. And they usually take care of players when it comes to those contracts. If somebody's close and there's a unique situation where they don't get a potential contract stipulation, they give it to them anyway. So they generally built up that goodwill as well.
I'm sorry, it annoys me when people, but Jalen didn't throw any time. Who cares if he does? John, he's number 4 in the National Football League in rushing touchdowns this year. Actually, he's tied for 3rd. Mostert has 11. Edwards has 10. He and Christian McCaffrey, who is a touchdown machine, have 9 apiece. So why don't we emphasize the fact that Jalen is 3rd in the National Football League in rushing touchdowns? Instead, we say, yeah, well, he's middle of the pack in touchdown passes. Well, but you don't take into consideration the touchdowns that he runs in. They all count for 6 points. So why doesn't he get near as much credit for running him in as I think he loses for not throwing him in?
I think it's just the old school mentality of quarterbacks are supposed to throw the football. And, there's a group that still said, oh, running quarterbacks can't win a Super Bowl, this and that, and all that kind of stuff. And, the game has changed. The game has evolved. You don't have to like it, but you acknowledge it. Talking to Seth and I bang heads on the pregame show a lot and post-game show. And, he's an old school guy, evidently. And I'm an old school guy. I am.
Shouldn't Seth love that? The fact
I'm not talking about this specific. I'm talking in generalities. I'm not talking about this specifically. But yeah, there's, with an old, it's like, I wish you could go back to a different era and play the same way, but you can't. So what I respect about Nick Sirianni is like, all right, tell me the rules and I'll figure out what I can do under the rules the best way possible. That's the goal. Not liking it, not accepting it. Nobody hates bubble screens more than me. Nobody, 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 nobody. I truly believe that. Nobody in the country. It has ruined Saturdays for me. I can't stand college systems. I think they're terrible, but that's how you have to play. And it is what it is. I don't like 100 3-point shots in basketball a game. It is what it is. That's what the game has turned into, a math equation. So you try to find ways in that environment to win. And that's the goal. That should be the goal. You don't have to like it, but that should be the goal.
And let me ask you, because I know you've been very outspoken about bubble screens. How do you define a bubble screen? Because terminology sometimes can get mixed. Different people call different things that are very similar, different by different things. What do you define as a bubble screen?
It's basically just the outside screen, the extension of the run game, where it's a math equation. They say, oh, we got numbers. Let's throw it outside to Julio Jones. Got 2 of them yesterday. That's it. I think he got a total of 5 yards.
Is it defined by how far outside the hash marks you catch it? Is it defined by behind the line of scrimmage? How do you define a bubble screen, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, for me, it's just a quick pitch outside. It's just a quick throw to the receiver.
So outside would be different, like the pass that Swift caught last night, lined up, not in the backfield, kind of in the slot, and the quick hitch. That's not a bubble screen because it was inside. Does inside or outside define bubble screen?
Well, you usually have a bunch outside, and 2 guys are out there to block for the other guy. So you usually have a bunch, and you're saying, all right, we have more numbers than they. If we make the block, maybe we can bust a play. Occasionally you see it. I saw who was a tight end. Jonnu Smith got one 65-yard touchdown a couple of weeks ago as a tight end. Some teams do it better than others. There's also when the Eagles get illegal man downfield penalties, which was a big issue for them early in the Nick Sirianni era. It was usually all on these plays, 90% of the time, not always, but because they're downfield blocking a little bit too early. It's just an unaesthetic, ugly play. It's just ugly football, and that's why I don't like it. It's just it's ugly, and the only time it isn't ugly is when a particular fan's team gets a 65-yard touchdown. Then they think it's spectacular, but they forget the 10 other times where it looks like garbage. And basically, it's one of those plays, and it comes from college, and college stuff comes from high school, and innovation trickles up in football. And, people figured out, all right, we might only have a couple playmakers, and we got to play with Alabama or Oklahoma. And let's try to get the ball to our playmaker in space as much as possible. And then it drifted up to the NFL, and it's just an ugly play, Jody. It's ugly football. And the Eagles use it like their life depends on it. But they win games, so it is what it is.
You and I see this differently. It can be ugly when it fails, when the wide receiver misses the block, when they don't put, because it's precision, it's timing. You got to get the ball out quick. You got to get it right to them. If it's off a step or a half a step, it can get real ugly real fast. I'm with you on that. But when it's run correctly and you get the right blocks, I actually think it can be a really pretty play we don't use.
Well, that's what I said. If you're rooting for a particular team and it goes for 65 yards, yeah.
I don't give a flying fart who
well,
runs
you
it,
might have bet on the team.
Don't. If it's done correctly, it's a pretty play. Don't care who I'm rooting for. I'm watching the Saints and the Falcons. I don't give
well, it might be a betting situation. It might be something of that nature. But if something works, I'm saying go back to the Bill Walsh 49ers because they were the most aesthetic team probably of all time. And when they would do their intricate plays and their playbook, which was so freaking complicated, probably too complicated back in the days when you could prepare. That's what I'm talking about. It ain't that when their stuff would work to perfection. And you really said, wow, that's something. The West Coast offense and all their kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, beauty is always in the eye of the beholder. But that particular play has ruined Saturdays for me. I can't stand college football because everybody runs the same damn offense, and it's ugly, and I always say the NFL is shifting too close to that, and it becomes. I say it all the time when I talk about analytics. Billy Beane has had an advantage. I always use Moneyball as example. He had an advantage because he was first. And he was doing it when nobody else was doing it. When everybody copies it, it becomes who does it best. And that's what you're talking about, execution. Yeah, if you execute it perfectly, well, how many times the Eagles run it yesterday? What'd they get? Keep doing it.
You define a bubble screen slightly differently than me, and I think that would determine how many times they actually ran it. So they didn't have I wouldn't say they had a good quote unquote bubble screen at all last night. There wasn't one that broke a tackle or got a great play. They were much better at the pulling guards from the middle of the offense at guards. And they pulled Mailata on one play coming all the way across the formation, getting out in front, which was phenomenal. No, they didn't do real well with the quick hitters other than the Swift quick slant, which was a big play in them winning the game. All right, he's McMullen. I'm McDonald. We're hoping to get Jeff Kerr. Don't know where Jeff Kerr is. He was supposed to hop on with us. We'll continue to effort him. We still got an hour left to talk about Eagles Chiefs. Stay right here on Birds 365.
Go to